Welcome in. It's another Monday. Time for Monday Live. I'm Jason Priester, allclemsontigers.com, part of Clemson Maven multimedia platform covering all things Clemson Tigers. Um, it's usually just me flying solo on these things. I know a lot of you guys are softball fans, so we're going to kick the night off, a little differently, talk some softball. Clemson just finished up the regular season up there in Blacksburg. Dropped 2 out of 3 to the Hokies. Also dropped a midweek game to Liberty. While that sounds bad on the surface, Liberty's a very good program. Top 30 in the RPI. It's not a terrible loss when you start digging into the numbers. But, I know some of y'all like to talk softball, so I went out and I got somebody that knows a little bit more about the softball program than I do. Watching as much baseball and covering as much baseball as I do, it's hard to keep up with both. I admittedly got to watch a little softball this weekend, though, with the way the schedule for baseball played out. But I digress. Y'all help me welcome on Kelly Stone, colleague, allclemsontigers.com. He does a lot of softball stuff for us. So welcome in, my man.
Hey, thanks. Welcome. I appreciate your welcome.
So the regular season's over. As the title of this show says, the wait begins for Clemson softball team. 2 weeks ago, nobody was questioning whether this team was going to host. Heck, there was talk of national seed. Now here we are. I think national seeds, they got some work to do if they want to snatch one of those. Might have some work to do if they want to lock up a host spot. I think they are. What are they in the RPI? Are they still 15? They were. I don't know if
they dropped to 17.
It's 17. Last I looked, they were 15. I didn't think it had updated yet, but so they are 17th in the RPI. Right there on the fringe. If you want to host, you better be in that top 20. Probably best be in that top 18. As Kelly says, there's number 7. There's number 17. So what? Tell us what you think some of the postseason implications were from what happened up in Blacksburg this weekend.
Well, like you said, we dropped 2 out of 3. That was unfortunate to see. The girls, they looked a bit outmatched at times. They looked like they got outcoached at times as well, which you hate to see this late into the year. But this still is a very talented squad. There's a lot of talent from the top of the order to the bottom of the order. They just have to figure out how to get that stroke going again.
Now, this team got off to an extremely hot start. Then faced off with Florida State, one of the better teams in the country. Florida State swept them and kind of haven't looked the same since. Do you think something went wrong in that Florida State series and they've not been able to recover? Or is it more along the lines of maybe they just got exposed a little bit and this is who they are?
I think it's more of the latter. I think the team got exposed. The weak schedule they played to start the year reared its head when they finally had to face some tougher competition against Tennessee. They dropped that one. That was one of the early tests that the softball team faced. And then to be swept by Florida State, which is another elite program, and then to go up to Blacksburg and drop 2 out of 3 to arguably the third best opponent on the schedule. It's tough to see.
So as we sit here today, Clemson's done with the regular season. No games this weekend. Some other ACC teams still got one final series coming up this weekend. Not all, but some. Then we get the ACC tournament. What do you think Clemson has to do to absolutely lock up a host spot in the ACC tournament? Or have they already locked one up?
I would have to say they need a good performance in the ACC tournament to have any chance of hosting. The postseason tournament selection committee has proven over the past few years that they don't really have much respect for the Clemson program, as it's a very young program and they need to earn that respect, rightfully so. So they definitely, if they can win the ACC tournament, that would be absolutely huge, especially for their psyche, especially.
I would absolutely think they need to go win at least a couple of games in the tournament, which I think is absolutely doable. I mean, I think it should be expected. This is one of the better programs in the ACC. You don't want to leave. You don't want to leave it up to the committee. You want to go up there at the ACC tournament, lay an egg, and then leave it up to the committee, and you kind of maybe don't host and maybe get tied into with Oklahoma. You know what I'm saying? Or you do host as a 16 seed and you get tied in with Oklahoma and have to go to Oklahoma in the Super. That's what I'm trying to say. You know, have a go up there, have a good show, and don't be the last host team. Don't be the 16 seed and get tied in with Oklahoma. That's the last place you want to go, right?
Absolutely. Neither Oklahoma or Oklahoma State are friendly to opposition.
Go up there, win a few games, you know, move up in that RPI a little bit. Maybe, you know, I don't think Clemson. I think if Clemson went up and won the ACC tournament, maybe you got an argument for national seed. But I think anything short of that, you're probably just looking at hosting. But I think you got to make a little bit of a run, or you're leaving it in the committee's hands, and you never know what's going to happen. Because this is still, you touched on it a minute ago, no respect. This is still a very young program in terms of history. That's part of that's part of the scheduling when you're a new program, and especially when you've experienced quick success the way Clemson has. It tends to be a little bit tougher to schedule stronger out of conference competition. Nobody, especially if you're trying to get them to come play you at home, who wants to come play Clemson at home out of conference and take that chance? I imagine that's a pretty hard sell.
Yeah, absolutely. I would like to see the scheduling in the future get better. Maybe play some of the tournaments down in Florida that UCLA and Oklahoma, Florida State, Alabama, all those top tier teams, they go down and they are tested early on in the year. And I think that would help the Clemson program to get some of those, even if they're losses on the schedule early on, to get that experience against top tier talent.
So what kind of seed is Clemson looking at in the ACC tournament?
I would have to say they're looking at about a 4th seed, I would think. Florida State should be number 1. Maybe even high as 2. I haven't looked at the standings today, but they're going to be in the top few seeds of the ACC softball tournament.
All right. You want to hang out for the rest of the show, man?
Sure. That's fine with me.
We're going to roll on to some baseball. And don't forget, if you like it, all you guys, man, that hang out with me every Monday night, if you have not hit that subscribe button down there on this YouTube channel yet, go ahead and do that now. I would very much appreciate it. All you guys are used to getting this show every Monday night live on Facebook. That ends after tonight. Tonight will be the last time it is streamed live into the Facebook group. It's going to be exclusive on YouTube from here on out. I did it. I was going to do it. You know, I kind of started hinting at this a few weeks ago and then never said anything about it. Here we are. That's the way we're heading. I appreciate all y'all tuning in. I enjoy chatting with y'all every Monday night. I would very much appreciate all you guys making that move with me. While the live stream won't actually be in the group anymore, the link will always be there. It's my group. Our stuff from our site will always be plugged there. And it will still continue to roll on out every Monday night, 7 o'clock. Don't forget, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. If you like it, share it with your friends. Yeah, as my man Brady here says, the Clemson baseball team is cooking, man. They have really turned it around since this Wake Forest. See, Wake Forest came in the Doug Kingsmore, swept Clemson a few weeks ago. Clemson kind of went toe-to-toe with those guys, and that's one of the top 5 programs in the country right now. Wake Forest is leaps and bounds ahead of everybody in the ACC Atlantic, while everybody else is kind of jumbled up there together. But as we've touched on before, Beckett's kept saying, we're going to turn it around. We're going to turn it around. And that is exactly what has happened. They turned it around almost at the same time he said it. He said it after the game 2 lost to Wake Forest. He said it after the game 3 lost to Wake Forest. They've lost 4 times since then. They're 11-4 since. They've beaten Coastal Carolina. They've beaten Georgia. Took 2 out of 3 from Notre Dame. Took 2 out of 3 from Florida State in Tallahassee. Swept North Carolina State, who was at one time a top 10 RPI team in Raleigh. Went up to Boston this weekend. Took 2 out of 3 from Boston College, who was ranked 11th in the country. So this team is on fire right now. It's not going to get any easier, though. I say it every week. This is a big series coming up, and here I'm saying it again. Louisville comes to Doug Kingsmore for 3 games this weekend. Louisville's just now fallen out of the top 25 rankings. I'd have to go in and look exactly where they are in the RPI. They're still top 30 RPI, if I'm not mistaken. So another big-time series. And Clemson, 2 weeks ago, we talked about it last week, they were left for dead. Now after what they did against North Carolina State, you see them in the regional projections as a 2 seed, in the Conway Regional with Coastal, which that's just a projection. But if they keep this pace up, you're putting yourself into discussion to host, not go on the road and play in a regional. And if you can win the remaining, these last 3 series and maybe go up to Virginia Tech and sweep them, take 2 out of 3 from Louisville this weekend, go up to Virginia Tech, sweep them, take 2 out of 3 from North Carolina at home, that last series of the season, and go to Conway, which is not going to be easy to do, and beat Coastal Carolina, which is next week, I think you are putting yourself in the discussion for a national seed. And 3 weeks ago, this was a team nobody had making a regional. They were sitting at 2-7 in ACC play. It has been a remarkable turnaround. What do you think, Kelly?
Absolutely. Those that have heralded patience for the baseball squad, that patience is being rewarded now. They are absolutely playing on fire, and it's exciting to see the boys on the diamond turn it around.
If y'all got any questions about, softball, baseball, football, whatever, drop them in the comments. Anybody that watches this every Monday night knows I like to let you guys drive the conversation. I'll run my mouth for a few minutes at the top, and then I'll let you guys take it where you want to go. So wherever y'all want to go, y'all drive the boat, and we'll follow along. But this baseball team's rolling, and it's come together faster than I would have thought it would have. I didn't have the highest of expectations for the baseball team this season. I think Clemson should be in regional play every year. I think that should be an expectation every year. We are talking about Clemson baseball. They should be in the postseason every year. But, at the same time, if you take a step back and look at it, first-year head coach, transition season, it would have been understandable if it had took them a season to get everything sorted out, guys in the right roles, especially with this team dealing with some injuries the way they were at the start of the season. Man, I'm telling you, it is really come together for these guys and faster than I thought it would have. It has been fun to watch. All right. Yeah, before we move on, I'll answer this. Do we have any injuries on the baseball team? Billy Barlow, I do, he's been pretty much – we've seen him a handful of times this season. He was one of Clemson's most effective starters last year. Has been limited by injury this year. I'm not even sure he's pitched 5 innings this season, but I don't expect to see him back this year. One Willie Weiss is a guy who was brought in to probably be the closer for this team. He was with Bakich up in Michigan. They struggled with a bad back earlier this season. If you go look at the number of innings he's pitched this year, he's really been limited. So I think he's still dealing with that bad back. And that's probably part of why Ryan Ammons, when he came back from injury, went back to the bullpen. But yeah, there's still a few injuries they're dealing with. I don't think Tyler Corbett's 100%. You know, he's been dealing with the foot injury off and on. Started out as a high ankle sprain, if I'm not mistaken, but then he aggravated it. But we've seen very little of him. But they are getting more healthy than they have been for the most part of the season. Again, Ammons is back. A guy that doesn't get talked about much, Rob Hughes, who didn't pitch the first half of the season, I think, but one time. He's back, and he has been lights out since he's been back. I don't think he's allowed a run yet. So you got him, Ryan Ammons, Reed Garris, Nick Clayton in that bullpen, and they have been pretty dang solid over the last month. I know Clayton had the one bad outing whenever it was. The games start to run together with me, but for the most part, Clayton's been pretty dang good. Coach Bakich has gotten Grice under control a little now. Kelly, how much baseball you get to watch?
I not as much as I'd like.
I know if you're watching softball, it's hard.
Yeah, it's the other side of the coin that you experience with covering so much baseball. You don't really get to tune in to as much softball as you'd like. It's the same for me. I don't really get to tune in as much baseball. During the postseason, I get to watch, but I usually depend on you for my baseball information.
Yeah, well, Russell here talks about Caden Grice and Bakich getting him a little bit under control. You know, it seemed like they were butting heads a little bit there earlier in the season. Grice got ejected.
Arguing calls, correct?
Yeah, arguing balls and strikes in the Saturday game against South Carolina. He was arguing balls and strikes early in the game, got warned, did it again late in the game, got ejected. Was supposed to be the starting pitcher the next day when Clemson had no arms left because they used them all up on that Saturday, a bunch of them up that Saturday. And he gets himself ejected knowing he was going to have to start the next day. And I could tell after the game Eric Bakich was not happy. And then I can't remember what it was specifically, but not long after he gets back in the lineup because Bakich held him out for, I don't remember, 2 or 3 games. He did something on the bases. I can't remember what it was specifically that didn't sit well with Bakich, and he yanked him out in the middle of the game. But yeah, Grice has really come on of late. ACC Player of the Week or Pitcher of the Week this week. One of the National Players of the Week this week. His bat has really come to life, or he's really found his power stroke. You know, he's for the most part he's hit all right this season, just from a pure hitting standpoint. He's batted around 300 for the most part all season long, but he's found his power stroke, and it's kind of coincided with when he started pitching. I don't think that's coincidental. He hit a ball out of Doug Kingsmore Stadium the other night that, hell, I'm not sure that ball's landed yet. It was so high, I don't think TrackMan could track it. It was one of the longest home runs I've ever seen. I think it was against Kennesaw State the other night. It was a moonshot. Hit 2 more home runs this weekend. And you can tell that Grice is, you know, I thought last year when he struggled so much that he played he looked like a guy that was playing with a lot of pressure, with a mountain of expectations on his shoulder. To me, he looks like he's playing more freely this year, a lot less relaxed, and it's paying off for him big time. All right. A man here says, I'm going to create a burner and subscribe again. Hey, create as many burners and subscribe as many times as you like. We'll take it. My man Eli, what's up, buddy? All right, everybody, we're going to jump on into some football now. That's what everybody comes here to talk about, anyways. I just make them sit here for the first 5 or 10 minutes and bore them with the baseball before we can get to the football.
That's the moneymaker.
John, understand scholarship limits, but does Liam Boyd leaving put a ton of pressure on Gunn working out 100%? Absolutely. He's the guy, man. He's got to be the guy now. And I'm not 100% sold on the fact he was going to be the guy. We saw what Liam Boyd was capable of doing in the spring game. I mean, and there were, 45, 50,000 people there. That's a pretty good crowd. Could he do it under the lights with 80,000? Who knows? I would assume so if he could do it in front of 50,000. That kid's got a strong leg. This one, it kind of caught me off guard. I was not expecting to hear Boyd hitting the portal. But once you see it and you start thinking about it, it kind of makes sense. This is a kid who is a walk-on. He is competing for a starting spot. But with numbers the way they are, Clemson does not have a scholarship to give him right now. He can go in the portal, guarantee you he's going to find somebody to get him a scholarship. And absolutely 100%, I think that amps up the pressure on redshirt freshman Robert Gunn, who has a powerful leg in his own right. He can kick the tar out of the ball. We'll see. We'll see what happens there, man. That's a very good point, though. When will there be a final list of officials for June? You might not know that for 100% for sure till 2-3 days before that weekend. Not in all seriousness, you're going to know most of the guys that's coming in. The list might grow a little bit between now and then. We know most of them is coming in now. Fletcher Westfall told me over the weekend, offensive lineman, he's going to come in. We'll see what names get added to it. It doesn't sound like Braylon Staley's coming. It's a little bit disappointing. I know he says that he's already seen enough of Clemson. He doesn't need to take an official. But still, man, that's when Clemson does some of their best work. Does some of its best work is on that weekend. You absolutely want to have him here that weekend. So I think they will continue to work on him and hopefully try and get him there that weekend. But as far as an official list or a final list, yeah, I can't tell you that. I can tell you this. I won't put one out personally until the week of, because it's so fluid. It's changing all the time. Guys are getting added, guys getting taken off. Like, for example, Egan Boyer, he told me he was taking an official at Clemson, and he commits last week, so that's off the table. So just using him as an example there. But, again, you're going to have a pretty good idea if you follow the recruiting stuff. I can put together a list of guys that I know are coming and put it on the forum and maybe add to it as we go along. I can try to do that for you this week. Stud linebacker from Georgia. Talked with him anytime recently. Sammy Brown, 5-star.
Sammy Brown.
I get asked about him every time. Every week. Never fails. Not surprisingly, though, I mean, he is one of the biggest targets on the board. He's arguably the best linebacker in the country. It's a guy you absolutely want to land if you're Clemson. I have not talked to him recently. I was actually thinking to myself today, now might be a good time to try and catch up with him. But, he's one of the guys that will be here for that first weekend. Still think this is a Clemson-Georgia battle. Not prepared to say I'm leaning this way or that way. I think there are a lot of things he likes about both schools, and we'll see. I would, if what he told me is true, I would fully expect the decision sometime in July. But until then, I wouldn't expect a whole lot of anything new coming out. He absolutely doesn't give away a whole lot of hints. If you've watched me talk about him before, you've heard me say he every time I've talked to him, he always goes back to the culture at Clemson, man. The family-like, feel inside the program. Those are the kind of things that stands out to him. I'm pretty sure, if I want to say, I think it was him that told me in one of the interviews I did with him that, he was at a practice, and one of the things that really stood out was how the team picked up after itself, cleaned up stuff, after practice, and didn't depend on others to do that for them. I think it was him that told me that. Don't hold me to that. I've talked to a lot of guys, but little things like that about Clemson's culture sticks out in him. But, I know that people think Clemson's depth chart at linebacker helps Clemson, and it very well might, because Georgia's loaded with a bunch of 5-star linebackers already. He would have some stiff competition if he ended up at Georgia. He's got a pretty clear path to the playing field at Clemson. But this is a kid. I don't think competition scares this kid one bit, man. If he wants to go to Georgia, I don't think like a room full of 5-stars is going to scare him off. So we'll see how it plays out. I think we'll get a decision in July sometime. Any more transfers? How about you, Kelly? Think we're going to see any more transfers?
Probably. I always assume somebody's going to leave this day and age. It's just too easy and too tempting, even though most kids that transfer or go to the portal don't end up finding another home sometimes.
I don't know about this one. I lean towards saying no. I think we might be done with the transfers. I think Dabo Swinney's finished with all his post-spring meetings now. I think if we were going to have any more, we'd have already had them. I tend to think Boyd might be the last one. And, again, he caught me by surprise. I was totally not expecting that.
Same here.
Malcolm Green jumped into portal last week. And while I wasn't expecting it, it didn't surprise me. I think he's a guy that has kind of been passed by a little bit since he's been hurt the last couple of seasons. He put it out there today. He's going to play for Tony Elliott at Virginia. I think that's a good spot for him. I think he can add a lot of value to the back end of that Virginia defense. And I'm not sure how much he'd have played for Clemson with some of those young corners they've got on the roster. So I think good move from Malcolm Green. And I think if we were going to see more, we might have already seen them by now. But, yeah, that's just a guess.
I certainly hope that's the case.
I appreciate that, Russell. I very much like talking all the Clemson sports. I wish I could talk more softball better, man. I just can't watch it enough to really be all that informed or educated about it. And if I get up here and start pretending I know what I'm talking about, I'm gonna make myself look like an ass. And I do that enough as is. Can we land 12 commitments this June? I tend to think Clemson's going to have a busy June. I also tend to think it's not going to be as busy as last June. We'll see how it plays out, but if I had to venture a guess right now, I say no. Clemson does not get 12 commitments in the month of June. That was a program record under Dabo Swinney, so it never happened before. Just looking at the list of the guys the list right now currently, there were over 30 guys that took visit that was on campus for that big official visit weekend last June. I'm not sure the visitor list is going to be that long this year. We'll see. So if the visitors list isn't as long as last year's, it stands to reason that the results over those first few weeks coming out of that weekend might not be quite the same as last year, if that makes sense. What are the chances Dabo gets a commitment or a few shortly after the June visits? What do you think on this one, Kelly? I'll let you handle this one, Kelly.
I think anytime Dabo gets a chance to get a potential commit on campus, it's good. It tends to end up good for the Clemson football program. Dabo is a master salesman. He knows how to sell Clemson, and if the recruit comes to campus, chances are if Dabo has his opportunity, he's going to land him.
I'm going to say yes to this question. I think it will be multiple commitments coming off of that weekend. Again, like I said a minute ago, I don't think it's going to be as many as it was last June. And I've talked about this before on here. I think I talked about it last week, matter of fact. Last June was as busy of a month as I've ever had since I've been covering Clemson football. And in June, no sports are even being played. And I was that busy because of all the recruiting stuff and all the commitments. I think last June's when I started doing the Shades thing, and I didn't realize it was going to catch on the way it did. I think Clemson is going to end up with some commitments coming off of that weekend. I think there will be probably several over that month of June. Might stretch a little into July. A lot of kids I talk to say they're going to take all of their officials in June, then decide in July. But I do think there will be at least a handful that don't wait until all the way until July to make their decision. It wouldn't shock me to see one or two jump on right after that weekend. Let's say a cornerback, for example. Clemson's only taking one more corner. It's going to be first come, first serve. So if you land a receiver coming out of that weekend, you're only taking two. Same thing. Might get the second one to jump on board a little earlier than he was planning just because he wants to lock the spot up. But I think that weekend's going to be extremely successful again. Maybe not quite as successful last year just because the numbers don't match up, from a sheer volume standpoint the way they did last year. But I think there will be some commitments that rise up from that weekend. Keep hearing different stories about Will Taylor, that he's officially a one-sport athlete now and that he's still on the football roster and will play. Which is it? I have not heard anything about Will Taylor quitting football. He is still currently on the football roster. He's still, he's on football scholarship. Now, having said that, would it surprise me to hear that he's not playing football this year? Absolutely not. It wouldn't shock me in any way, shape, or form. Before the season, the baseball season started, Will Taylor met with the media one time, and he didn't come right out and say anything, but the way he said some of the things, I just got the feeling, and I might have been reading a little too much into it, but I got the feeling that maybe his football career at Clemson could possibly be over. He was that focused on baseball. It was all baseball. He didn't even want to talk about football at all. So I could absolutely see it playing out that way. We all know Clemson's two scholarships over the 85 limit. And if he decides he's not going to play this year, that all of a sudden that's just 1 year over. So we'll see how it plays out. I have not heard anything, officially, unofficial. I haven't heard anything about it, but it would not surprise me. Is it the portal closed? It is. Yes, I believe it might be. It opened on the 15th, and it's only supposed to stay open for 2 weeks. So if it's not already closed, it's fixing to close. Yes, I never need help. I never need assistance making an ass out of myself. I do it quite often. I am the master of the brain fart. Let's see. Why and how has it seemed that DeMonte Capehart keeps dropping down the depth chart? It's hard to believe that he's not in the projected too deep. What do you think about that one, Kelly?
Oh, DeMonte Capehart. I think the youngsters coming in are that talented. Peter Woods, especially. I think he's going to come in and play a lot, and somebody's got to get shifted back. It looks like Capehart's that guy.
I'll add this to that. Nobody expected Tyler Davis to come back this year.
That's very true.
A lot of people thought Root might move on after last year. Both those guys come back. Those are starting caliber defensive tackles. So that, that plays a huge factor in this, regarding Capehart. As we all know, Capehart, who is actually right down the road from me here in Hartsville, played at Hartsville High School. So I'm a little more familiar with him than some others might be. But, he got hurt, fell behind a little bit. But, man, this guy, I think he's just as talented as most everybody in that defensive group of defensive tackles. Obviously you got guys like Peter Woods who are 5 stars and everything, but DeMonte Capehart, man, I think his potential is off the charts. I think he's going to play this year. I think he's going to play more than some people might think. We've seen it in the past. Tyler Davis, he gets hurt sometimes. He misses games. Root has been hurt a time or two. Tigers need somebody to step up when those kind of things happen. But let's say they don't and everybody stays healthy. I still think Capehart's going to be a part of the rotation. He's a guy that I think he was one that I kind of had one eye on after last season that I thought might be a potential transfer candidate. After Davis announced he was coming back, and Rook announced he was coming back, and you bring in those 3 stud defensive tackles. I thought Capehart was a guy that could be a potential transfer. He decides to stick it out. I think he really likes it at Clemson. I think he sees a role for himself in this defense, not just in the future, but I think he sees, one this season. I think we're going to see him on the field. He's not going to start, but I think he is going to be a depth guy, and I think he's going to play some snaps.
Absolutely.
Why did you say you don't think we would go after Watkins if he decommitted for 2025? Winston Watkins is who we're talking about. Cousin of Sammy, 2025 wide receiver. I didn't say why. Kind of purposely. He's already been committed to one school, decommitted. Now he's committed to another school. I just don't see it. I think I'm not. This is going to make it sound like I'm saying he's a bad kid or something, and I'm not saying that in any way, shape, or form. I don't think Clemson's for everyone. I think, if Winston Watkins had legit interest in Clemson, he wouldn't have already committed to 2 other schools already. Those aren't the kind of kids Clemson typically chases after. So I'm just not sure it's the best fit. That's why I don't think Clemson's going to, if he decommitted, I don't think they'd put the full court press on him by any stretch. Yeah, I don't know anything about him chasing NIL. I don't track him at all. So I haven't heard anything. He's committed. I don't even remember. He was committed to A&M, and then he decommitted. I have to look up who he's committed to now. Or he's committed to A&M now. I can't remember. Like I said, I don't track him at all anymore. And let's not forget
Colorado.
He's committed to Colorado. Maybe, I don't know, NIL might be a factor. And I'll just also throw this in here. He goes to IMG. And I'm not sure when we'll see another IMG player at Clemson. We'll see how it plays. We'll see what happens in the future, but those two parties aren't the best of pals these days, it doesn't sound like. IMG. But he committed to Texas A&M. Watkins committed to Texas A&M very early, and then decommitted. I just couldn't remember who he committed to the second time. But yeah, like Sarian says here, it's Colorado and Neon Deion prime time. Yes. Seems like coaches and staff at IMG are not in Clemson or Davenport at all. I do think there were some bridges burned back in the 2022 cycle when they had those guys decommit. And I just leave it at that. If that is it, we will bid y'all farewell. Appreciate all y'all tuning in. Hey man, don't forget, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button if you don't mind listening to me ramble for 20-30 minutes every Monday night. Appreciate you, Kelly, for jumping on here, man, and talking some softball with me and some football with me and whatever else we dive into. Don't forget, starting next Monday, YouTube only. Still have the links in the group, but the live stream will no longer be there. We go on YouTube exclusive. I know I've been saying it for weeks. Finally pulling that trigger. So, till next Monday, appreciate y'all tuning in. For Kelly, I'm Jason Priester, allclemsontigers.com, part of Clemson Maven. That's a mouthful. Part of the Clemson Maven multimedia platform covering all things Clemson Tigers. See y'all next Monday.